IELTS Speaking Part 2. Scary, right? For a lot of students, it is. For a lot of students that come to me, the thought of talking for 2 minutes to answer a question is daunting. Daunting means something that makes you think you cannot do it, that you cannot achieve it. Now, lots of students, when they first come to me for help with their IELTS speaking, they just answer questions in a very simple and brief way. They really struggle to think of ideas of how to speak for 2 minutes. If you're one of those students, this video is for you. I'm going to show you a great technique that will help you to talk for a full 2 minutes. Let's have a look at an example IELTS question. A simple question. Describe a long journey that you once took. You should say when this journey was, where you went to, how long the journey took, and whether you enjoyed the trip. So, some students might say something very simple like this. Last year, I went on a really long train journey. I live in Calcutta, and I caught the train all the way to Chennai. The trip lasted about 17 hours. I really enjoyed the journey because I really like trains, and there was lots of nice countryside to look at. Okay, so you've answered the 4 points mentioned on the card, but how long have you spoken for? Maybe 20, 25, 30, 35 seconds. Not good enough. You haven't talked for long enough to show the examiner your abilities in English. You need to talk for longer. So, how can you do this? Let's look into this now. Tell a story. That's my first piece of advice. Humans love stories, and your examiner? He's a human. He might not seem like it, but he really is. He or she will enjoy a well-told story. I promise you, they will. Stories usually involve answering these questions. What, who, or with whom, when, where, why, and how. If you think of any good story like Cinderella or Red Riding Hood, these questions are always answered. So, how can you do this in an IELTS exam? I suggest that what you do is that you use what I call trigger words. So what's a trigger word? Let's have a look at the next slide. Here is the trick. Look at the most important noun near the end of each sentence that you say. Then ask yourself, what else could I say about that subject? And use these questions. What, where, when, why, how, and who to give more information about the subject. So let's go back to that first slide. Underlined in red are your trigger words from your original answer. So you've got 4 simple sentences here that you could quickly note down in your 1 minute that you have to prepare. 4 simple sentences. Underlined in red is your trigger word, a noun towards the end of your sentence. And you can ask these questions about each of the underlined words. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of exactly what I mean. So, last year I went on a really long train journey. So train is our trigger word. And we're going to ask those questions that are used for stories. So, trigger question, what? What type of train was it? Electric, diesel, steam? New, old, red, blue, black? What type of seats did it have? Leather? Plastic? Were the seats comfortable? Were they uncomfortable? Was it a long train? Was it a short train? Why? Trigger question, why about the train? Why did you decide to take this journey by train? What other choices were there? Compare the choice you took, the train, with those that you didn't take. Trigger question, who or with whom? Who did you travel with on the train? Maybe you didn't travel with anyone. In that case, maybe you can describe or talk about somebody that you spoke to on your long 17-hour train journey. If you can't do that, you could describe somebody that you saw on the train, even if you didn't speak to them. Yeah? So that's the who trigger question. What about the other trigger questions with this trigger word train? How? How did you get your tickets for this train journey? Or did you not book them at all? How did you get to the station that you took the train from? Trigger question when? You've said it was last year in your answer, but which month? At what time of day? What else was happening at the time of year that you went? When did you book your tickets for this train journey? And finally, trigger question where? The train won't have stopped at your front door, so where did you go to catch the train? And how far is that from the place where you live? So, second set of examples using the trigger word Chennai, which was your second sentence in your original 4-sentence answer. I live in Kolkata and I caught the train all the way to Chennai. Let's apply our trigger questions to the trigger word Chennai. What? What is Chennai known for? Is it famous for something? Does somebody famous come from there? Where? Where is Chennai? What province is it in? How far in distance from Kolkata is it? Trigger question why? Why did you decide to go to Chennai? Trigger question who? Do you know anyone who lives there? Trigger question when? When did you last visit Chennai? Trigger question how? How did you hear about Chennai? Did you read about it? Did you watch a television program about it? Did a friend tell you about it? These are how you can use these trigger questions about the trigger word Chennai. So, let's put all this together in an answer, and I'm only here going to talk about the train. So you remember that first sentence? Last year I went on a really long train journey. I'm going to give this answer now based only on that one trigger sentence, and you'll find that I'm able to speak for about 40 seconds. So we've developed about 40 seconds worth of talking from just one sentence by applying trigger questions to trigger words. Last year I went on a really long train journey. It was at the time of Diwali, and I remember that I had to get up in the dark to catch the train, and all of the houses in my street looked beautiful because of all the lights shining out from them. I caught the train from Sialda station, having caught a bus to get there from my house. It's about 25 minutes from my house. I decided to go by train as it was a lot cheaper than flying, and it would be too far for me to drive. The train was a brand new electric train, and all of the seats were really comfortable, which was a relief. I made the trip with my friend Rajesh, whom I know from college. We're studying English together. So you see, I've spoken for perhaps 40 seconds based on just one sentence. You can do the same with the other 3 sentences. If we look back at the trigger words, train, Chennai, 17 hours, countryside. Follow the same tactic of applying the trigger questions to those 4 trigger words, and you'll have a long, full answer, and the examiner will have to stop you from speaking. You will find it so much easier. So, when you are practicing for your IELTS exam, whether it's with a teacher or with a conversation partner, start practicing this method and you will get used to it. And you will become used to saying blah, 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 blah. And you will instinctively know which noun near the end is your trigger word that you should focus on. In this case, train, Chennai, 17 hours, countryside. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then please subscribe to this channel for more advanced English lessons, especially about the IELTS exam, but also about advanced vocabulary in English. Please like this video, please share this video on your social networks, and finally, comment. What do you think of this strategy for IELTS Speaking Part 2? Could you see this working for you? What's the best idea that you've heard of how to deal with Part 2? And finally, if you have any questions for me, please leave them as comments below the video. I hope this has been helpful. Stay tuned to this channel for more helpful IELTS tips, and see you soon. Bye.